Hi to all of you in South Africa. My name is Jim Friedman. I'm a professor of creativity and entrepreneurship at Miami University, Oxford, Ohio, in the United States of America, and also the chief steward of World Creativity and Innovation Week and World Creativity Innovation Day, which is celebrated in more than 82 countries, including right there in South Africa. And we are so happy to have you celebrate with us. As we open up World Creativity this year, I want to share a few thoughts. Now, a lot of people think about creativity in terms of art making, in terms of if you can paint or you can draw, you can dance, you can sing, you can write, that you're creative. But that's not the way we think about creativity. We think about creativity in the way that you think. It's important to think of it that way. And what we know is significantly based on a study done by a guy named George Land. Now, George Land was a scientist for the NASA program who in the 1960s was trying to get astronauts from the Earth to land on the moon, take off and fly back home. And it had never been done before. So George Land knew that he had to hire scientists who were not just smart, but also creative. They needed to think in different ways. So what George Land did was he gave every person who applied for the job, he gave them a test. He gave them a test of their creative powers. And he gave that same test, not just to all the scientists, but he gave the test to a whole bunch of 5-year-olds, 1,600 5-year-olds, and they scored at a 98% genius level. Well, that surprised Dr. Land. And he decided that he was going to follow these 5-year-olds for 5 years until they were 10 years old. And he would give the same test to the same 1,600 10-year-olds. And that time they scored at a 30% genius level. In 5 years, they had gone from 98% down to 30%. So he followed them for 5 more years. And when they were 15, he gave the same 1,600, the same test. And this time they scored at a 12% genius level. Interestingly, at that time, back in the 1960s, and today, all over the world, adults score as 2% creative geniuses. So what Dr. Land discovered was that creativity is not inherited. It is not learned. Creativity is unlearned. We are born creative, and living teaches it out of us. So you were born creative. Think about the way you are when you're born. You're curious about everything. You want to explore everything. You want to touch everything. And think about the way society treats you then. It says no. It says don't. It says don't touch. And that's how creativity moves out of us. I want to tell you about something I did at Miami University when I heard about this child. Her parents called her Mayhem. Her name was Sydney. But Mayhem was 4 years old, and her parents were watching the movie stars walk the red carpet during the Academy Awards. Well, Sydney left the room, and she went into the bathroom, and she came out sometime later, and she had taken all of the toilet paper, and she had wrapped it around herself into what she perceived to be a beautiful evening gown. Well, what would you say, or what would your parents say, if you had taken all of the toilet paper, wrapped it around yourself and said, look, I'm a fashionable movie star? They'd probably say, you're wasting toilet paper, you made a mess, stop that. But what Sydney's parents said, well, if you're ready for the red carpet, then we need to take the paparazzi. And so they started taking pictures as Sydney pranced around the room in her toilet paper evening gown. Well, what that meant was they didn't stop her creativity. And from that time on, Sydney continued to make evening gowns out of whatever she could find, boxes, paper, tubes, whatever there was. And her parents would take pictures of them. And by the time Sydney was 5, she actually had her own clothing line with American clothes manufacturer J. Crew. And when I found out about this, I had Sydney come teach my class. So I brought Mayhem to Miami, and Sydney taught my students how to make clothes out of whatever they could find. And my class became children again. They played, they laughed, they explored, they experimented, and they had their own fashion show, judged by their 5-year-old teacher, Little Mayhem. Think about that in terms of education. In education, we have a tendency to teach people there's one right answer. When we came into school, like Mayhem, we were all question marks. We had more questions than answers, but teachers told us, find the right answer. Stop asking questions. Give me the answer. It is important that we return to our childhood to become question marks again and stop looking for all the answers. It is important to know that school teaches compliance. It's important that we understand that compliance doesn't foster innovation. As a matter of fact, conformity does the opposite. We need to teach our students, we need to teach our children, we need to teach our young people to be empowered, to explore, to find, to discover, to risk, to make mistakes, because that's how we learned. We learn through making mistakes. If you think about the first time anybody kicks a soccer ball, it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go very far. It doesn't go in the direction we wanted. But as a child, we're really excited to kick it again, to try again, to play, to explore. It's only as adults where we look at things and say, I can't do that. I'm not going to try, because we fear embarrassment. Risk, making mistakes, is how we become creative adults. So, as we begin World Creativity and Innovation Week around the world, and there in South Africa, I want you to explore. I want you to play. I want you to return to your childlike ways, where you are questioning, whether you're excited about learning. Have a great World Creativity and Innovation Week and World Creativity and Innovation Day. I look forward to celebrating with you and the world.